Starting in the F tier, the unusable tier, we have both mine layer paths. Especially with the return of all the event modes, all of the event modes either have multipath or the structure just isn't made for the mine layer to survive. In base game modes, mine layer can put in work at very specific times, but it is just so impractical that he is practically an unusable tower in TDX. Moving on to the D tier, the usable tier are towers that, sure, you can use it, but barely. Ranger, of course, will be usable for beginners, but quickly falls off, as usual for starter tower. The patrol boat's flamethrower path is usable, but on like 5 maps in the game. Besides those, you literally barely get the opportunity to actually use this efficiently. And the bottom path, golden mine layer. This may sound like a surprise for such an expensive, glorified tower to be at the D tier, but especially with the event's return update, just like the normal mine layer, it isn't built to survive. Its only practical use is endless mode and impossible maps. Apart from that, are you really going to consider bringing a bottom path golden mine layer when you need to bring something to win you the game? It's not usually the first thought. Endless and impossible maps are the only places where you will actually get a benefit from switching something else out to use this tower, really. Again, especially with the events returned, it is just so niche. But let's move on to the C tier. Towers that are pretty mid, like, yeah, there's some uses, and if you know how to use them properly, they can do some good stuff, but why use these over other options? Let's start with the bottom path laser gunner. Its cost efficiency isn't the best, its range isn't the best, it has an unstealthing ability, but its range is so short that you have to put so much effort into making it work, it's just mid. The top path sniper also goes here. Sure, you can beat every base game mode with it, and it can be a decent long range DPS, but why bring it over other options that are much easier and more efficient? That's why it's in the mid tier. It has potential, it's not completely useless, but it just doesn't compare to other options. Next is the bottom path operator. It doesn't get hidden detection like its top path does, and that just overall makes it have less use because of that. Both cryo ranger paths go here as well. Yeah, sometimes if enemies are caught with a low freeze HP, it can dominate, and the ignore freeze resistance can also be nice, but at this point, not many people have this tower, and it's just like, why use it over other options? It just tries to be a DPS and a support at the same time, which sometimes works out, but usually there's better options. Bottom path sentry also goes here. The top path usually just finds more usage, to be honest. I don't actually use the sentry all that much, so this could be wrong. Correct me if I am wrong, but for now, it goes here. Top path Grenadier is a short range explosive tower. Not really that good, because it doesn't stun enemies like Slammer does. The top path shotgunner is sort of similar, a good short range AoE, but not that good. Kind of outclassed by bottom path John too, in a way. Top path cryo blaster goes here as well. When you do want to use a freezing loadout, it can be a nice addition to keep enemies frozen, but by itself it just doesn't provide much. The top path patrol boat goes here, a little better than the bottom path because it has a crazy amount of range, but it still just suffers from being a water tower. You can use it on like 5 maps total, it's just not that good. Finally, the top path golden mine layer. This has the added benefit of its crossbow ability, which can help it in cases to be like the artillery tower, or stack up extra mines for impossible maps, but other than that, it still is just really impractical. Everywhere else in the game, then where it's good, it'll just be really bad, and that is especially true with the events being re-added. Enough of the C tier though, let's go to the B tier, where the majority of towers are, the good tier. Towers that you see quite often, and usually have their own very good use cases, just not enough to be considered best of the best yet. Top path John has good cost efficiency and a good ability. The Juggernauts both go here, just standard DPS units. Bottom path Ghost goes here. Ability sometimes can be good, but it really isn't. Overall, just used for Ghost, generally good cost efficiency. Top path Golden Ranger is a nice long range golden damage type DPS. Top path Railgunner feels pretty similar to top path Golden Ranger, just a nice long range laser type DPS. Both missile trooper paths go here, with the top path being a nice explosive DPS, and the bottom being a good source of ignore explosive resistance, and just a much larger explosive radius than top path does. Bottom path sniper actually lands its spot in here, as the flare gun is a super cheap source of map-wide stealth detection, which I have found myself using a lot lately, especially in the newly re-added Tower Battles event. The top path laser gunner goes here because it has much better range than the bottom path laser gunner and provides you support with its stun ability. Top path mobster has some nice ignore resistance and is pretty underrated as a DPS. Top path sentry is a nice beginner DPS. The Zed goes here because its max level is really good, like probably A tier, don't get me wrong, but level 0 through 4 just don't hit as hard as level 5 does. And level 5 is pretty expensive. Both armored factory paths go here as well, both having their own use cases and being a very reliable spawner tower for things like tower battles or expert or elite. Top path operator has some good cost efficiency and stealth detection. Top path machine gunner goes in B tier as well, but honestly he might be A tier as well. I just don't use machine gunner enough to know. He's pretty good. Both warships go here because they could just dominate the entirety of late game in TDX if more maps had water for them. Because not enough maps have water, it goes down to B tier. It does absolutely dominate whenever you can use it though, so, you know. Top path Toxicinator is a nice, reliable DPS with nothing having resistance against it, which makes it very reliable. Bottom path XWM is a nice late game flying / splash DPS unit, although quite expensive. Both artilleries are just the AoE towers, there's not much else to say about artillery. Bottom path medic, to be honest, feels A tier, and the crits can sometimes be really good, especially with stuff like bottom path golden juggernaut, but I just had to separate it from its top path, which is overall more useful most of the time, especially with the events being re-added, which we'll get to later. Bottom path slammer is a nice source of stun and AoE, but not as good as its top path, which is why it's separated into B tier. Top path cryoblaster has very good freezing capability, but freezing isn't always necessary, especially in the newly re-added chaos of the new re-added events. Cryo helicopter has some decent freezing as well, along with some good damage amplification, but doesn't go to A tier because it is a pretty heavy investment. Bottom path grenadier can do you some nice stunning if you just need more range than Slammer's melee range, especially in the new re-added events where it's pretty good on multipath. And finally, icebreaker, which, like the previously mentioned freezing towers, can be very good, but you don't always need freezing, and it also gets deducted points for being a melee freezing tower. Okay, there was the B tier. But let's move on to the good stuff, the beyond good stuff, the A tier, the meta, the stuff you will see very often picked, and probably your first thoughts of what to pick when making a loadout. Starting off is both paths of the combat drone. Both combat drone paths before the events update literally were like SSS plus tier. Best tower in TDX. Absolutely zero competition, the TDX tower. But with the events returning, they now have a 2.5 times cost in half of the game's content. So because of that, it gets knocked down to A tier, but even then, it is still a very valuable pick. Not as good as like SS plus anymore, but still A tier, still very high. Next up is the top path golden mobster, which has honestly become a lot more OP thanks to it excelling in modes like Christmas Chapter 2 and the Halloween multipath modes. Both golden juggernauts land spots here as well, very reliable DPS units. The bottom path railgunner is also a very powerful boss DPS, landing a spot in here. Bottom path golden ranger not only can be used as DPS, but also has the use of being able to stun bosses, so it gets a nice spot in the A tier. Bottom path John's cost efficiency, AoE, ignore bullet resistance, and axe ability are all just insane. Definitely an A tier tower. Bottom path machine gunner can sometimes be even better than golden juggernaut, surprisingly. And especially with Christmas Chapter 2 and Halloween Chapter 3 and Chapter 4 recently being added, or re-added, its cone range is just perfect for those events, if you know what I mean. Proving very powerful in those circumstances. Top Path Ghost has absolutely insane cost efficiency, and has a pretty reliable source of revealing stealth, along with being stealthed itself. Very good bullet type DPS, and support for stealth. Both barracks make their way in here, being an extremely reliable early game mid game unit, especially when the newly re-added events. The bottom path helicopter in here as well being able to unstealth enemies and just being, you know, the helicopter tower, it's very good, but not as good as its top path counterpart, which we will get to later. Top Path XWM is a very reliable late game DPS and requires barely any micro from the user, which is good for most late game scenarios. Top Path Medic, being able to make towers completely invincible with the Uber ability, is very useful in events, and the higher healing it has compared to its top path, its bottom path, is nice as well. Practically a requirement for most events. A bottom path mobster can easily make you tons of money in any mid to late game scenario. Commander and both EDJs are very good at providing you with much more range and damage, easily sliding into A tier. Farm honestly feels a little weaker because most events are re-added and it's not as good in most events, but they're still very vital for either providing your base with extra HP or of course giving you money. Top Path Slammer got a little bit weaker with multipath or pathfinding events, but it is the tower to bring for tower battles early to mid game, along with being able to stun most bosses, so it is an obvious A tier. Flame Trooper can give 20% more damage to all non-boss enemies and has very good AoE damage, very useful. Bottom Path Toxicnator similarly can give a 30% more damage to non-boss enemies and 10% more damage to bosses, very useful and for a very cheap cost as well. And finally, both AA turrets land spots here. Better for different scenarios, and it got much better with events being added, as both Halloween and Christmas love to have flying enemies. It's not just a counter to expert mode anymore with the events being re-added. They just delete a certain type of enemy. Their cost efficiency is absolutely insane. So, there is the A tier, but last but not least, let's finally see what is in the S tier. The most OP towers of TDX that pretty much should be in almost every loadout you make are the Bottom Path Golden Mobster, Top Path Helicopter, Relic, Scarecrow, and Troll Tower. The Bottom Path Golden Mobster not only is a powerful source of flying detection and unit spawning, not only has very good life insurance that practically makes it so you don't have to worry about selling towers, not only makes you money every time it has to reload, but also has the bounty ability that provides you tons of money as well. The Bottom Path Golden Mobster is just a beast for support. The Top Path Helicopter can pretty much be used in literally every single game mode, and it makes literally every single game mode a ton easier. It deals good splash damage, deals good DPS overall, it is super strong. The Relic's cost efficiency on lower levels is no joke at all. The archers that you buy for only $2,500 are genuinely so strong. Their damage type is melee for some reason, which not many enemies have resistance against, and this is especially true in the newly added events that it is just super strong. And then, if you want something good to do with the late game, get the Overseer, because if anything doesn't have collision resistance, it's just gonna run it flat. Scarecrow and Troll Tower don't need an explanation. Honestly, I probably should have put them in a higher tier with pre-nerf combat drone. But, there we go. There is the tier list. Let me know what you agree and disagree with in the comments below, and I'll see you guys later. Peace out. Have a good